Have you ever stopped to think about what happens behind the scenes when you see a counselor who's still in training? Well, it turns out there's this incredibly detailed safety net designed to protect you, the client. Today, we're going to break down that exact framework from the American Counseling Association's Code of Ethics. It's a huge question, right? I mean, when you're looking for help, the idea of working with someone still learning the ropes might feel a little uncertain. So what's the backup plan? Who's making sure you're getting competent, ethical care? The answer isn't just one person. It's actually a whole system, a professional safety net that's woven together by supervisors, educators, and even the trainees themselves. It's a team effort where everyone has a specific job to do to protect the client and keep the standards of the profession high. All right, so how does this safety net actually work? Let's take a closer look. The first, and you could argue the strongest thread in this whole thing, is the supervisor. Their role is spelled out in a way that's both powerful and crystal clear. And you gotta pay attention to the wording here. The code doesn't say it's a suggestion or a good idea. It's a primary obligation. This means supervisors are absolutely required to be actively watching over the trainee's work, their professional growth, and most importantly, the client's well-being. They are the first and most critical line of defense. And all of this monitoring, all this oversight, it all points to one single non-negotiable principle. No matter what else is going on in the training process, one thing always comes first. And what it all boils down to is transparency. Both the supervisor and the trainee have to make sure you know exactly what the deal is. You have the right to know that the person you're talking to is a student. You have the right to know a supervisor will be reviewing your case, which, by the way, affects the usual rules of confidentiality. This isn't just a list of things to check off. It's the very foundation of trust. Yup, your welfare as a client. It's the top of the list, the number one priority, period. It overrides everything else. Every decision has to pass through that filter. Is this what's best for the client? It's the ultimate tiebreaker. Now, to keep that focus laser sharp on the client, the code gets super specific about professional boundaries. Why? Because when those lines get blurry, it's a recipe for disaster. The risk of someone getting hurt or of a counselor making a bad call just skyrockets. This slide lays it out perfectly. On the left, you've got the ethical relationships. Everything's got to be professional and clearly defined. The code gets that sometimes boundaries might be extended, say for a graduation, but only if it's thought through very carefully. But on the right, those are the absolute don'ts. These are situations where the power dynamic is just way too risky and objectivity goes right out the window. And just to put a fine point on this one, there is zero wiggle room here. Because of the power imbalance that's just built into the student-supervisor relationship, any kind of sexual or romantic involvement is completely forbidden. It's a bright red line you just don't cross. End of story. Okay, so ethics aren't just a list of don'ts. They're also a blueprint for building something really positive, skilled, self-aware, and truly competent counselors. So let's see how the code makes sure that happens right from the ground up. You don't just magically become a competent counselor, right? It's built piece by piece. Supervisors have to be good at teaching, not just doing. Programs have to weave multiculturalism and diversity into everything they do. And they've got to mix the book smarts with actual hands-on practice. And this is a big one. Students have to look in the mirror too. They have a responsibility to know if their own personal struggles could get in the way of helping a client. So what happens if a trainee just isn't cutting it? This is where the safety net gets really serious. We're talking about the ethical duty to evaluate students, and, when it's absolutely necessary, to stop them from becoming counselors in the first place. It's a concept called gatekeeping. And yeah, it sounds a little intense, but think of it as the ultimate quality control for the profession. It's the duty of educators and supervisors to protect the public, to protect all of us, by making sure only people who can provide safe, competent care get to call themselves a professional counselor. But this isn't some surprise exam where you just get kicked out. It's a whole process. It starts with constant, regular feedback. If a student is struggling, the first move is to help them get the support they need. If things don't improve, any decision to dismiss them has to be backed up by consultations and tons of documentation. And here's the key. It has to be fair. Students always have a right to challenge these decisions. And that brings us to the final checkpoint. When it's time for a student to get their license or apply for a job, they need an endorsement. And a supervisor can only give that endorsement if they genuinely believe that student is qualified and ready. It's basically the supervisor putting their own professional reputation on the line, giving that final seal of approval. So when you pull it all together, from that very first session with the trainee all the way to their final endorsement, this ethical safety net is always there. It's a system that's not just about rules. It's about building trust. Trust between you and the people you turn to for help. So that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Now that you know the safety net is there, how does that shape your confidence in the counseling profession as a whole? Thanks for joining me.